Hi friends, it's Salt. If you're new here, this channel is all about salt. Salt is the alchemical mineral of transformation. Salt cleanses, it heals, and it transmutes energy just like you do. This channel finds the rare archetypes who move through life differently. So if you found this, I'm really honored to have you and be one of the few who gets to see and reflect you properly. It feels like today I'm talking to people with really, really special gifts. That's just what I feel. I don't feel they feel that way about themselves, but who I'm talking to today is a collective of very highly skilled pattern reading, particularly in others. I feel this gift is often misunderstood, and so hopefully I can clarify it today because it truly is a gift. I pulled the Weaver archetype. Always check the descriptions when you listen to my messages for more in-depth explanation or goodies. I sense there might be a lot today, so always just check out what I draw in the descriptions. It's always there for you if you're interested. It's just a much easier way to summarize the complexities so we don't spend too much time going through those details and I can get to the core of the message more efficiently. You may be the type of person who just reads things that others can't see. I see you spending hours of your life explaining these precious insights to others. I see it's really a gift for those around you to get the inner workings of your brain. Some of this explaining deeply changes people, like you're able to connect the dots for them in places they could never do themselves, since it's very rare that people have this gift. Sometimes, however, it's not registered until much later. You have to actually physically leave a connection for them to hear your words. That might be a pattern you've noticed, but sometimes they can register within a connection. Some of the explaining you've done in your life in the past has, unfortunately, though, been in vain to deaf ears. Like some people that you see patterns that are much more interesting to you because they're deeper and more complex, and you spend your time racking your brain to figure out solutions for them. They just weren't ready to see those patterns that you did clearly. So there is a portion of your life that was maybe spent in vain, especially for those deeper and more complex problems that really light you up. I sense that there's a pattern there between you wasting your time in a way because they're just not ready, especially when those problems are deeper set. I'm being presented gardening, outdoors, insects, oddly enough, as really important right now. I don't really know why, but perhaps you could be called to get outside more and connect in nature. You could also live, interestingly enough, in an area with a lot of spiders. I think spider season is actually coming up in the next couple of months. You could also just be presented with spiders as confirmation of this message in the upcoming days because it relates to the archetype I drew that's in the description. I sense you have spent a lot of your life dissecting and understanding those around you. Truly, a lot of your energy has been placed and channeled there. And it's not a bad thing. I think you were refining these gifts that you have by first practicing on others. It's almost as if that's the natural progression of your gifts. You have to practice on others first before it can really advance, before mastery comes of this gift. You've often stayed, from what I see, in situations where people kind of take advantage because of this gift to find patterns. You can see connection points that others cannot. And that has given you such a tolerance for bad or harmful behavior. Perhaps sometimes it is bad, sometimes it's innocent. It just gives you an understanding and insight that others don't have as to why it's happening. So it keeps you in situations that perhaps hurt you or are not good for you. I don't see you necessarily making excuses because I can see you see the rationale very clearly and you understand the harm. I think gardening is significant here because you naturally help others grow by connecting these insights for them, these complicated webs that you're pinning together and showing them the larger pattern. And nobody would take the time to do that except for you. So you really affect and deeply impact people in their life. I don't know if you really honestly see how special this is. I don't mean to like inflate your ego today, but I just don't know if you see how gifted you are and how special you are. I think you just do it naturally, almost like it's automatic, and only focus really now in reflection on how it's kept you in situations, and that's frustrating you. So you're kind of seeing the downside of it, maybe not the positive of it, but I definitely see you not seeing the full specialness of this. I think that's to come, though. There might also be a correlation between others impacting your ability to see this gift. Like, for example, if partners or people that you've shown patterns to are not ready to see it, they'll get defensive and angry and kind of like dismiss this gift as a problem. And so I see that being a reason for your inability to see it clearly right now. It will change, however. Once channeled properly, this gift that you have of pattern insight and like webbing together these complicated things into one clear, coherent problem and solution, this is the gift that sets you free later in life. But I can see how it's frustrated you in the past and it feels like it confines you. It's just a progression of mastery, though. And this is the natural state of that, is first it's practiced with others. There is an interesting shift here that has happened recently. Strong Mercury and mutable signs here are coming through and emphasized: Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces. Check your Mercury placement for that, or that could be highly resonant in your chart. Perhaps a stellium of some sort or multiple placements are coming through. But apart from that, I think this is just a theme of mental fixation, of mental priority, and I'll get to that. I sense that for a majority of your life, you've spent your time in this mental space of turning over and processing problems and difficulties for others. And recently, you've shifted that to begin to understand and process for yourself. I almost feel now that conversations or being around people and using that mental energy is really just exhausting for you. And it feels like it's almost too loud, which would never be the case in the past because you were truly engulfed in that loudness. So now you're being forced by feeling that into a space of turning inwards because you can't take the exhaustion, the loudness anymore. It's like almost overwhelming. It's overstimulating. I sense you being less reactive as a whole than you once were, interestingly enough. I don't know how that relates, but perhaps you're less stimulated. But I also see with that less reactive state, there's also less certainty overall. Because when you were in that stimulation state, you had certainty in a strange way. That's what's being shown to me, is maybe it wasn't full certainty, but it was something more than you have right now. Spirit is showing me a desire to keep your old habits alive. So where you've spent time turning your wheels and understanding things for others, you want to apply that same logic here to yourself now that you're being forced to turn inwards. It's just natural to you. It's rhythmic. You are trying to apply the same logic that you've spent your whole life in automatic response with, but it's not working here. So you're asking things to yourself like, why am I like this? What is wrong with me? Why don't I want to socialize anymore? You're mentally spinning your wheels on understanding the challenges you're facing right now. You're trying really hard to approach this space now in the same way you did with others, but Spirit is guiding me to explain that same approach will not work in this space you're in now. And there's a friction point that's clear. I don't necessarily see it working in the past, but I do see you getting rewarded for it more clearly than you are now. For example, maybe it kept you stuck in situations where you understood people who didn't deserve it, but there was a clear reward in the past for your labor in some way. I don't see where that was, but it's more present in the past than it is now. I'm seeing in this space, there is more emptiness and less meaning you're able to create in a way. So It's very uncomfortable for someone so gifted to be in this like meaningless space, what feels like, because of the emptiness. It's like your power is kind of rendered useless here, and you don't know how to exist in a blind place where you've always been able to see so clearly, so vividly. So I suppose the message here today is to simplify the beautiful workings of your mind a little more. It will want to keep working in this space of complexity and pattern recognition. I sense your mind will keep wanting to do that, but it keeps running into this wall that don't connect those pieces like they used to. And it will leave you less certain than when you started trying to connect those pieces and find those patterns like you're so accustomed to. You might find small connections within yourself, I'm seeing, but then they won't go anywhere like they used to with others. And so perhaps that was your reward, is eventually you would find a place of connection, of pattern recognition. But this isn't the space to really connect things anymore, I'm seeing, even though that's your highly attuned gift, is you've already used it to the point where it was useful. And now it's time to shift into a different type of mastery. Spirit is telling me this emptiness is not necessarily a void. You might understand it as one, I'm sensing. Like that's kind of what you're telling yourself, is that this is a void space. But the truth is, it's more of an absence of an old identity. It's not really a void. So the emptiness feeling here is just what seems like a direct result from turning off hyper understanding of others and then not being able to fill it with a hyper understanding of yourself. Because the understanding of yourself won't come from the mind and from pattern recognition like it did when you understood others, this space of emptiness is creating a new method to understand yourself outside of that mental processing. This might come from more feeling places, more physical feelings, rather than mental processing, or it could just be a trust in the lack of mental processing as time continues to unfold. It's almost like you're relearning that understanding isn't the ultimate form of safety, and it's more of that inner trust that you already know all there is to know, and you don't need to perform mental gymnastics to find the answers, to find the truth, to find the pattern recognition. It already exists without pattern recognition, without advanced logic. So I think unlearning this will take a lot of time, just existing in this empty space. But it's more important that you don't fill the emptiness with your mind's answers just for the sake of not sitting in the emptiness. I think Spirit is guiding you to just exist in unknowing a little more than the technical understanding of what surrendering might be in your brain, because we all talk about surrendering and we understand that logically. But here there's an application with you and your gifts that goes a little bit further than just what we think surrendering really means. You might be under the impression that surrendering means you can still mentally process, you can still find patterns because that's where you're comfortable. But I think this is a very specific case of surrendering and how it applies to your special gifts and your past tendencies. Surrendering in this case is learning that you're no longer in a space to find patterns. You're no longer in a space to understand like you used to. This is much different. So you won't arrive at a space where you begin to start to see patterns like you used to, because you're already past that state and you're going into more mastery now. This last part is maybe a confirmation to those who already instinctively know to do this, but keep leaving comments. The comments themselves do not have to be anything personal about you. Think of these as energetic nudges. This helps me align to your energy more efficiently and be able to channel for you. And I want to be able to do that. I read each and every one, always. None are missed. None are ignored. I am so thankful for each and every one of you and love you all. So, cheers, friends.